Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to today's Climate Careers Chat. My name is Isabella Aguirre, and I am a member of Sustainable Leaders in Action, and I will be one of your co-moderators for tonight's event.
Hey everyone, my name is Max. I'm the other moderator for you guys tonight, and I'm actually the Climate Careers Chat intern. So I help lead the team that produces these events. And starting with this event, these Climate Careers Chats are also co-hosted by the Contra Costa County Library, and will be talking a little bit about our partnership.
Hi, my name is Will. I am the Teen and Adult Services Librarian at the Doherty Station Library in San Ramon, and I was so excited to hear that the library was partnering with Sustainable Contra Costa and SLIA to put on this event. The library has always supported sustainability, and I see this partnership as one more way that we can bring important information to our community. So I wanted to say thank you to Ellie and Max and the whole SLIA team. I want to thank Ashley and David for agreeing to talk about your careers, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Will. So now let's transition to an overview of tonight's event. So first, we're going to introduce our wonderful panelists, Ashley Adams and David Cohen. First, Ashley Adams will go first, then we'll have a short break. You'll learn a little bit more about Sustainable Leaders in Action and what we do. And then after that, David Cohen will give his presentation. And then after that, we will have a Q&A session. So you get to not only hear from our wonderful panelists, but you also get to ask them questions. So stay tuned for that. And after that, we will close.
So these Climate Careers Chats are a series of quarterly panels produced by Sustainable Leaders in Action, which is Sustainable Contra Costa's youth-led team. And these events are produced with the intent of educating anyone from students to seasoned professionals who are interested about a career and anything to do with the climate and sustainability in the natural world. So we're really excited to see you all here today. And also a little bit about Sustainable Leaders in Action. We also produce some other projects, including a newsletter and a curriculum for young students to learn about sustainability. So we're really excited to teach you all a little bit more about sustainability and green careers.
Once again, I'd like to mention that today's Climate Careers Chat is also being co-hosted by Contra Costa County Library. Thank you again for being part of this event. Now, let's introduce our panelists. Today, we are joined by two professionals in naturalism, Ashley Adams and David Cohen.
And we also like to play a little game called Two Truths and a Lie. You want to go to the next slide? Ashley, if you want to introduce yourselves and then your three options.
Alrighty, good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Adams, and I'm a naturalist with the East Bay Regional Park District. I currently work at Black Diamond Mines in Antioch, where I am today on the ancestral homeland of the Halpun peoples, a Bay Miwok speaking tribe. And so to get to know a little bit more about me, here are two truths and a lie. See if you can guess which one is the lie. My first job was working at a beauty supply store. I have rescued injured rattlesnakes as part of my job and transported them to wildlife hospitals. And I worked for one season as in Disneyland's entertainment division as a character lookalike performer.
So I just launched a poll for you guys. Go ahead and start voting, and I'll close it after 1 minute. All right. And the votes are in. Ashley, you want to let us know?
All right. So the lie is that I worked in Disneyland. I've never worked in Disneyland ever before. I always thought that would be a really fun job. But I think I'm better than a Disney princess because I'm a naturalist on trail and I get to have live animals with me all the time. So it's a lot of fun being a naturalist with the parks.
Okay. Thank you, Ashley. And now, David, you want to introduce yourself and your options?
Hi, everybody. I'm David Cohen. I'm also a naturalist with the East Bay Regional Park District. My site is Ardenwood Historic Farm, and my 2 truths and a lie. I have been chased by a Cape buffalo in Tanzania. I have rescued sea turtles in Costa Rica. I have gone scuba diving in Indonesia. Which one is the lie?
Oh, looks like the buffalo and scuba diving are almost tied.
Where can I see the poll answers?
Should be able to.
Not a DOA way.
Hey, I wasn't able to see mine, David. You don't get to see yours.
Oh, sorry. We
It
got.
looked like
Oh, I
at the end there was an option to share when you end the poll.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So we got 8 votes for Cape Buffalo, 4 votes for sea turtles, and 10 votes for scuba. David, which is it?
Yes, I fooled most of you. The lie was I have rescued sea turtles in Costa Rica. I have not done that, although I would love to do that kind of work or visit Costa Rica, which I never have. But the other 2 are truths.
We've been had. All right. And let's go to the next slide. So first up, we have Ashley Adams, naturalist with the East Bay Regional Park District.
all
And
right.
I will stop sharing, and Ashley, you can take it away.
Sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Bear with me here for just a moment while I do that and start my slideshow. All right. So in the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about my path to becoming a naturalist with the East Bay Regional Park District, because it's a job that I didn't even know existed when I was in high school. But luckily, through some life experiences, I found out about it and eventually landed my dream job. I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up in San Leandro, which is not too far from Contra Costa County in Alameda County. And I had no idea what the East Bay Regional Park District was, but I knew that there were parks and open spaces in and around my area that I loved. I like to say that I started hiking before I could walk because I was very fortunate and privileged to grow up in a family where my parents took us out a lot. Here's a picture of me and my mom at Redwood Regional Park in Oakland. But we went to all of these places. We went fishing at Lake Chabot. We went hiking in the redwoods. But I never really realized that all these parks were joined together. When I was in high school, I was very passionate about the environment. I was president of our Earth Club at San Leandro High, And yes, these pictures are snapshots from the yearbook because we didn't really have great like camera phones back then. So these are old pictures from 2008. But regardless, there I am planting a tree on the San Leandro High campus. I was so passionate about the environment. We didn't have recycling on the campus before Earth Club came around. So we raised enough money to put recycling bins on the quad. But my other passion was theater. And I did a lot of it. I was in the musical every year and the fall drama performance all the time. And even outside of high school, I did theater. And I never, ever dreamt that there could be a profession out there for me where I could blend my two passions. What I do as a naturalist is not exactly theater, although sometimes I get to dress up in costume for historical interpretation. But I do get to perform on stage as I'm sharing my love for the natural world with people of, all backgrounds. So this career really started for me after just taking a walk in the park. I was walking at Lake Chabot with my family and my parents went in to use the restroom. And while I was waiting for them to come back out, I started looking at the bulletin board. You know how there's usually bulletin boards at staging areas or parking lots or near bathrooms. Well, I was just looking at the map and looking at the bulletin board and I saw this, a flyer with a girl holding a snake and somebody in front of a giant fish tank. And I thought, what is that? Interpretive student aid. I had no idea what it was. I thought interpretive, I don't really speak another language. I don't know if I can do this. But when I went to the website and applied, I found out that it's working in visitor centers. So I applied. And in my senior year of high school, I got to work here at the Crab Cove Visitor Center in Alameda. Now, I don't know if you've been to the beach in Alameda before, but all that sand at the beach isn't natural. Most of what Alameda would have been like is this rocky shore, and that's where we find amazing species. So what I got to do and get paid for it was hang out at the beach and show people cool things like bat ray bathtubs where bat rays have come in at high tide and at low tide we can see where they were. We got to turn over rocks and look at crabs. I got to work on field trips where students from Oakland sometimes were seeing the San Francisco Bay for the very first time, even though they lived right next door in Oakland. So this was kind of the realization for me that this is what I want to do like all the time. I worked with naturalists who had full-time jobs while I worked throughout my schooling. If you're interested in working with the East Bay Regional Park District, you could do what I did and fill out one of these job interest cards. We can talk more about this later, but basically you just put in your email address and whenever the interpretive student aid position becomes available, you get an email saying, hey, go apply right now. It's a super awesome way to stay connected. So after my time with the Park District and throughout it, actually, I went to school up at Humboldt State University and I majored in geology. It's kind of like majoring in camping because we were out in the field almost every weekend. Here's a picture of our field studies class outside Death Valley. We got to go down there for a week. We were always looking around, making maps and studying the geology of California. And most of my fellow students were going to be field geologists, which I thought would be pretty cool. But instead of just being on my own out in the field all day, which is super important, don't get me wrong, we need to make those geologic maps and know what's what. But I found out that I really loved talking to people about geology. And I found out while working at the Crab Cove Visitor Center that a lot of people weren't really aware of all the fascinating geology that's happening in the Bay Area. A lot of folks didn't know that Mount Diablo is growing every day as it's being pushed up with the Mount Diablo thrust fault. People didn't know that the Oakland Hills were created by volcanoes. And that's what I was doing. I was interpreting nature and the world around us, things that people see every day, but sometimes take for granted. So that's the field of interpretation. And that's what David and I do as naturalists with the East Bay Regional Park District. After I graduated, I didn't land this awesome job right away. No, it took some time and it took a lot of part-time work. Here I am working for the city of Pleasanton, but I also worked for the city of Berkeley at the Shorebird Park Nature Center. And I worked for the city of Pleasanton at the El Viso Adobe Community Center. And after graduating, I knew about the park district, but I didn't know that a lot of cities also hire environmental educators and naturalists to lead things like nature day camps. So I got to work with a wonderful day camp called Ridge Runners. And here we are up at Mount Diablo's Rock City, rocking out, having a great time exploring and learning about the geology of the area. So after doing this for a number of years and continuing to apply for the naturalist position, I finally landed the job. So here I am on the cover of the activity guide in 2013 as an interpretive student aide. This was just last fall's edition. I've got to come full circle and work with the organization that I really grew up with here in the East Bay. And we're lucky that there are so many different parks. There's about 73 different parks in Alameda and Contra Costa counties alone. And within those parks, there's different visitor centers, and each visitor center has a whole team of interpreters. Ever since working for the district, I've got to do some really cool things, like create virtual reality experiences. So we used to take people out on hikes and just tell them, imagine what it would have looked like back in the day before colonization, when these hills were blanketed with wildflowers. Well, now I've gotten to work with a company called Time Looper, where we actually create this experience where you go in the VR goggles through Oculus and get to see what the Bay Area would have looked like pre-contact. And there's grizzly bears and elk, wildflowers, the whole 9 yards. But using this for climate interpretation is also extremely important. In one experience, you can stand at the bay shore and watch as the sea level rises around you. So we can talk about climate change, we can talk about bay level rising, but when people experience this through virtual reality and actually watch the water rise around their feet, that's a powerful thing. So upon creating these virtual reality experiences, I actually got recognized with the National Association for Interpretation. So here I am with our president of the National Association for Interpretation when I won the Outstanding New Interpreter Award. So I got to fly out to Denver and give a little speech about why I do what I do. And I've also gotten to act as supervisors at some of the different visitor centers around our East Bay Regional Parks too, and host festivals like the Wildflower Festival, where Smokey Bear made an appearance that day. So that's a little bit about how I got to where I am, but what does interpretation really look like? Well, it's kind of like what I'm doing right now. We do a lot of virtual field trips these days, but it could be leading nature hikes. Here are some of David and I's colleagues leading hikes all across the East Bay. But it could also be going underground, like what I do here at Black Diamond Mines Regional Preserve. We get to take people inside a historic sand mine and talk a little bit about coal mining as well. Because here in the Bay Area, we were actually the state's largest producer of coal, which is something that we don't often think about, being the Bay Area and all. But it's a great tool to talk about climate and energy resources. We even get to be on bikes and boats. At Lake Del Val, I used to do a lot of kayaking programs, and I've led bike programs at Lake Chabot. So we can really cover more ground and see a lot of nature and cool cultural resources this way. So what really is interpretation? It's storytelling, and anybody can do it. But it's storytelling with a meaning, right? You remember reading those stories and fables back when you were a kid and learning what's the moral of the story, right? Every good interpretive program has a theme or a moral of the story. So it's really a call to action, and we're trying to get people to feel something on these programs. I don't just want to take people on a walk and say, hey, look at this wonderful gopher snake that's behind me. Isn't it neat? But maybe talk about some of the ways that this gopher snake has adapted to its habitat and why it's important that we protect these places to keep gopher snakes like Sydney here behind me alive and happy and healthy. And we really want to connect to people's emotions so that they care about these places. So I love this quote from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you make them feel. And that's what we do as interpreters. If you want to make a difference, make people feel something, to really care about the environment, then maybe you should be an interpreter. But we don't just talk about natural resources. We talk a lot about cultural resources too, especially where I work at Black Diamond Mines in Antioch. But here at the mines, we have to be careful. The danger of a single story. Now, this is true for pretty much any interpretive site where you may work. When we talk about the mines, we talk a lot about these guys, the miners. Most of them were Welsh, and they came here from all over the world. But these are the people that had their photos taken, right? These are the people whose stories are told. But not everybody had the chance to have their picture taken. Recently in our archives, we found these Chinese coins, meaning that Chinese laborers were working right here in Black Diamond Mines too, and it's a story that nobody knew about before. But of course, after building the railroads, folks came to the Bay Area for work as well. Well, Chinese miners lived here in Antioch and worked here, and their story is fascinating. It's a story of resistance and resiliency. And if you want to learn more about that, you can come along to my program that's on May 15th. But we also talk a lot about the women of coal country too, because without the women working in the post office and hotels of the day, the men wouldn't have been able to mine. It really took everybody. So it's really powerful to be able to share these stories with folks. So why do we do this? Why is it important? It's because these places can't speak for themselves. It's kind of like the Lorax, right? I speak for the trees. You can do that too. It's incredibly rewarding work and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. But most importantly, it's a call to action to get people to feel something and maybe even change their habits to be a better citizen in this place that we all call home. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now and bring us back.
Well, thank you, Ashley, for that wonderful presentation. I had no idea about the Oakland Hills being created by volcanoes. That is something new that I learned today. And I'm sure that the audience learned a lot of new things from that presentation. So if you learned something new or you want to know more about what Ashley said, we do have Q&A at the end. So please put your Q&A in the Q&A section in this presentation. We will get to them at the end. And I will go back to the main presentation. So now we're going to have a quick 3-minute break. Go ahead and stretch your legs, stand up, or during this break, you can also hear a little bit about Sustainable Leaders in Action and more about what we do. And after that, we will be back with a presentation by David Cohen of the East Bay Regional Parks District. We will see you soon.
Our chair, Alexi, will be talking about this.
Hello, I'm Alexi Lindeman, the chair of Sustainable Leaders in Action, and I really hoped you enjoyed that presentation and give you a little bit of insight on the mini cruise and sustainability. I really enjoyed it and enjoy all of these other ones. If you go to SCOCO's YouTube channel, you can also find our past 2 climate careers chats. A little bit about Sustainable Leaders in Action. We have a bi-monthly newsletter that you can sign up for, and there's a mailing sign-up list that you can sign up to get notifications on the climate careers chats that will be coming up along with the newsletters. There's one coming out on May 5th, I believe, and you can sign up there to get that article. Also, we have a monthly action of the month where we do a sustainable action from the Cleaner Contra Costa challenge. This one is bringing a reusable water bottle instead of a plastic one. If you're interested in learning more about SLIA or contacting us, feel free to reach out to me at that email below.
And we will see you guys back here at 7:03. All right, everyone. Hope you guys had a chance to get some water and stretch your legs. Up next, we have a presentation from David Cohen, naturalist also with the East Bay Regional Park District.
And I will stop sharing right now and I will hand it over to David. Take it away.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen real quick. That look good? All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here, and it was wonderful to hear from Ashley. And my presentation, I decided to title The Quest for Fun and Important Work. And if that was really my brief selling point of this field, is that that's what it is. It's work that's really important. It's work that needs to be done. And it's also really fun. And that's a nice combination. So I'd like to introduce you to younger me. This is the whiny hiker. This is the kid that was always dragging his feet on the trail and saying, why are we doing this? This is boring. Why are we going to see this? You know, all that stuff. So maybe a little bit different from young Ashley, but one thing that wasn't different is that our parents both did take us outside, and maybe I was just more annoying than she was. But my parents always found it hilarious and amusing when it turned out that this was my field, because I did whine so much on those hikes. Although I really do believe that exposing young people to nature can have a really big impact on their later life and their beliefs. And it definitely did for me. And that's a big part of why I enjoy doing what I do. And some other things that were an influence, I would say, on me when I was younger. One was outdoor education, both from my parents, but also I was very lucky and privileged to go to schools that had strong outdoor education programs. So again, getting that exposure to nature, even if I didn't appreciate it as much at the time. Another thing that impacted me a lot, especially in high school, was community service. My high school had a really wonderful community service program where the emphasis was on the fact that community service should be something that you want to do. It shouldn't be a punishment. It shouldn't be about quotas, about, oh, I have to finish these many hours. It shouldn't be something that you have to do extra after school is over. It should be part of school. And that had a big impact on me as well. In addition, I was really lucky to do some cool electives in high school that were actually around environmental studies and learning about water issues in California. And that had a big impact on kind of my attitudes about the environment and kind of my interest in it. And I did study environmental studies in college as well. But I will say that maybe wasn't as much of an impact as some of these other things that I said before. And you don't have to study environmental studies to work in this field, although it does give you a good basis on some of those topics on earth science or climate change. And obviously, if you're going to be going into policy work or other parts of other fields that are related, environmental studies is great as well. Now, after I graduated college, or actually, sorry, during college, during the summer in college, I started working for a really wonderful summer program called Aim High. And it's a program around the Bay Area. It's a summer school program, but the students who are about to graduate, who are in between 8th and 9th grade, they're going to summer school, they're doing math and English and all those summer school things, but for 1 week of their summer school, they get to do this really cool outdoor education program. And that's what I did. That's what I worked for. And so, I was taking students hiking, I was taking city kids like me, maybe some of these kids had never been out here, maybe they had never been camping before. I was taking them out there. And another really amazing thing about this program is habitat restoration. So helping students feel invested in the place because they actually put work into the place and they made it a better place, helping them become stewards of their national parks and realize that these are places that belong to them. And I ended up working for 7 summers for this program. So some of my other work experience that I'll be sharing, it kind of is going parallel along with this. So that was during college and then after. And then when I did graduate college, I was able to get a job with the YMCA Point Bonita, which is in the Marin Headlands. And this was also outdoor ed, taking kids on hikes, teaching them about nature and our environment, doing games and activities with them, mostly 5th and 6th graders, but lots of other ages too. And as you can see from the pictures, it's just a beautiful place. And there were many times where I would pinch myself and say, this is what I get to do. I'm getting paid to do this. I think Ashley said something similar. So if you end up trying out this field, you'll probably feel the same way. I was doing that part-time in the Headlands. And so I also joined part-time at the Aquarium of the Bay, which is on Pier 39. And here I was working with the public, giving presentations to them, but also teaching field trips, doing behind the scenes tours, and a lot of other really cool things like that picture of me. I'm on a boat, which is going under the Golden Gate Bridge, and this is actually a hybrid ferry. So it's a boat that has solar panels and wind turbines. And we would take students out there and teach them about the bay and teach them about the boat, and about different kinds of energy and all those things. And I was doing this part-time at both the Y and the aquarium. And so there were some times where I would be working, 14 days in a row and have one day off, and then work another 10 days in a row. And so it is something to know that, there is a lot of part-time work in this field. And actually that can be great, especially for young people or students. If you're going to college, that can be an awesome thing that you're able to do part-time. And for me, I was out of college, so I was doubling up on part-time, but I actually loved it because it was really fun. It was, fun work, so it didn't feel like too much. Later, I joined the California Academy of Sciences, and I worked there full-time for 4 years. And you may have been to the museum before, and you may have seen a presentation. You see the people in the orange vests, that was me. And you can see I'm giving a presentation there with our scuba divers. So the scuba divers in the tank, and they're speaking to us through a microphone, and then I'm talking to them and talking to the audience. So it's a really cool place to be because of all those beautiful exhibits and amazing animals, getting to work with those animals, getting to present to really large audiences, maybe 200, 300 people sometimes. And it's also great because it's a scientific research institution. So there are scientists that work there, and my job partly is sort of translating that science for people, sharing with people the work that those scientists do. And so I worked there for 4 years until just this January, and that's when I joined Ardenwood Historic Farm, which is part of the East Bay Regional Park District. So I'm new to the park district, but I'm doing field trips again, which is something that I really missed, that I didn't do at the academy. I kind of didn't mention that, but the academy is very sort of departmentalized. So, you probably are only going to be doing stuff with the public or only with schools. And I definitely missed working with kids. And that's one thing I'm loving about Ardenwood so far. But also there's so many possibilities at Ardenwood, because you can talk to people about history and about history of agriculture comes from. Of course, that is deeply connected to our climate and to what's happening right now around our world. So that's kind of some of my history. Now, I'd like to share with you all some of my personal pros and cons of working in this field. And I want to make sure that you really understand that, this is very personal to me. Some of my pros might be cons for you, or otherwise. These things to me when I was starting off. So I thought it might be nice to mention this. So pros, we kind of already hit on this. This is really important work, but it's also really rewarding and fun. And there have been many times where, I talked to someone and told them about what I do, and they're like, wait, you enjoy your job? Like, wait, you really have fun with your job every day? And it's not everyone gets that. And I'm very privileged to have that. And I'm able to share that beauty of nature, share that importance of nature with people, and share with people how everything is connected, how we're all connected to each other and we're all connected to our world. And that's something that I consider a big pro. Another thing is that, in this field, there's always something new to learn. I've learned about fish, I've learned about dinosaurs and human evolution and farming now. Now I'm learning about all these new things about history and farming, and that's just so great. There's always something new, and that's a big pro. And hey, we're talking about climate careers, we're talking about climate change. Well, this job involves sharing solutions with people. At the aquarium, we had an area where we would do science demos or experiments that would demonstrate some of these ideas about what's going on with climate change. At the academy, we're talking about climate change every day. So that's what we do, and that's a big part of it. Another pro of this field is that you become good at public speaking. And that's going to be great for you whether you stay in this field or not. So, you could work in this field for a few summers when you're in college, and then you end up doing something else, but you develop public speaking skills, and that's going to help you wherever you go. There's actually a great Jerry Seinfeld bit, comedy bit, where he says that the average person, their greatest fear is speaking in front of a crowd, and their second greatest fear is death, which means that if you're at a funeral, you'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. Now, for us, that's not the case. We love public speaking, and we still get nervous, we still get butterflies, but then we go out there and we're in the moment, and it's great. Another thing I really like about this job is that it avoids that Monday to Friday 9 to 5 in the office all day work. And for me, I love being outside. I love moving around. I don't really want to be in that environment. So that's awesome. And this field is not known for paying the big bucks. And obviously none of us are in it for the big bucks, but there are jobs out there that do pay well, especially for state parks, for local parks, park districts like the East Bay. We're unionized, and we make a good living. So it's just something to mention. Now, going on to some of the cons, personal, of course, again, a lot of these jobs are for nonprofits, and a lot of the time they are facing budget issues, and that you will be affected by that. So I don't think anyone in this field has no one in this field has avoided that. We've all experienced budget issues and things like that. Another thing that's been a big challenge for me is that, if you advance in this field, like if you get promoted, you're moving farther away from the part that I love. You're moving away from the part where you're talking to people and really working with the public. And that might be true of many jobs or many industries. I don't really know, but that has been a personal challenge for me. Another thing is, let's say you're working at a science museum and you're talking about climate change. Well, a lot of the people visiting probably are kind of already on board. You're not talking to the people that don't believe in climate change most of the time. And in a way, that's actually sometimes nice, because those people are receptive to solutions, and they're coming there to find solutions, and they want you to tell them. But if you're really interested, like if your passion is, I want to share this with people that don't already know about it, you might not run into as many of those people. Another thing that's challenging is that, there are only so many places. Like if you want to work at a zoo or an aquarium or a museum, well, we're actually really lucky here in the Bay Area because we have a lot of them. But even us, there aren't, there's only so many of them out there. So compared to maybe some other industries or fields, there aren't as many opportunities. Now, the opposite of avoiding Monday 9 to 5 is that you're working on the weekend, you're working on holidays. And, pretty much my entire career, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've worked at least one weekend day, pretty much that entire time. And I don't really care. I actually kind of like it, but it is something that's part of the deal. And the opposite of government union jobs pay well is, yes, we do have a reputation where, unfortunately, a lot of these fields don't pay that great. And, that's an issue, because we need to draw in people like you. We need to draw young people in to do this work. And so that definitely is something. Now, a big part of this job, and a big part of maybe why you might be interested in it, is communicating about climate change. How do we talk to people about difficult things? How do we talk to people about things they might not want to hear, or things that seem like such a huge, daunting thing that's too big for any one individual? And there are a lot of resources out there. So there are people that have done research on what are the best ways to communicate about climate change. And you might be familiar with some of these, but the National Network for Ocean and Climate Change Communication, check them out. through their website, you can actually find a free workshop you could do right now that would help you become a climate interpreter. So I put a link there. And maybe I can share these later with these links, so if people want to check them out. There's also a group that's called the Climate Literacy Collaborative. They're actually just changing their name from BayClick, but this is something else that you could join right now, and it's people from this field, and we're all working together to try to figure out how can we share solutions with people, and how can we do this maybe without reinventing the wheel, without each organization creating it on their own. And then another thing is that, we need you, we need your innovation to help figure out what are the new best ways to communicate about climate change. And maybe that's what your passion is. Maybe you're going to be the person that's going to help come up with a new way of communicating this with people, and that is extremely important. Now, I want to leave you all with some kind of tips of, let's say you are looking around for work in this field. And these are places that I've looked many times during my career when I'm thinking about something else or something new. One of them is the Association for Environmental and Outdoor Education. So these are going to be, California jobs. These are going to be a lot of summer things, which might be great for you. Doing outdoor ed during the summer, things like that. Another one is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. So this is going to be actually nationwide, but all of the zoos and aquariums that are part of this credited group, they post jobs there, and there are a lot of internships that pop up there as well. There's a job board for the California Association of Museums. So if you want to check out museum work, you can look there. And then, like Ashley said, you can fill out a job interest card with us at the East Bay. And that's really great because then when something pops up, it will contact you. And there's something else that I learned about actually just a couple of days ago, which was really cool, which is called Rising Sun Center for Opportunity. And they are a Bay Area organization that helps high school age people and college age people get that first job in green careers. And they mostly work around helping people. They help people, they go into people's homes, or now they kind of do it virtually, but they help people get set up with green appliances and other parts of their home. So that's not as connected to interpretation, but something I learned about recently. So I thought I'd share. And yeah, that's my time and my talk. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. And I'm excited to hear some of the questions that you all might have for Ashley and for myself. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, David, for the presentation and all those resources you shared with us. Just a reminder, we will be having a Q&A session to cap off the night. But first, Will from the Contra Costa County Library will talk a little bit about their upcoming events.
Yes, so big things are happening at the library, and many of you may know this, but this week, grab and go service started at most libraries. We've opened our doors to our patrons across the county, and you can now come in, browse our shelves, use a computer, and check out items that you have placed on hold. We also have a book club for young adults called the Overbooked Book Club. In May, we are starting a book called The Assassin's Blade by Sarah Maas. So if you find yourself looking for someone to talk to about the books you are reading, this is the crowd for you. Future book titles are decided by members, so you can also help pick what we are reading. And also, next Thursday on May 6th, the library is hosting author L.L. McKinney, who will be talking about her own pathway to becoming a writer. So please join us for that. And I'll be sending out a link to all of these events in an email after this event. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Will. So we'll start our Q&A now. And first up, we got a question from an anonymous attendee, and they want to know more about the program about the miners on May 15th.
Yeah, absolutely. I can speak to that. So right now, instead of taking people out on the trail and having folks gathering in large groups, we're doing everything on Zoom. So if you are free on May 15th at 10 a.m., all you have to do is navigate to our Facebook page for Black Diamond Mines. So if you go to Facebook and type in Black Diamond Mines, there's a bunch of different events that we do every weekend. And on May 15th, I'll be talking a lot all about the Chinese miner experience. So I'll be sharing what research we've done here in the past few months and what we've learned about. And you can also navigate to that Facebook page and get a little sneak peek of that program for Women's History Month in March. If you look at our Women's History Month series, the last episode of that was all about Chinese women that lived here in Antioch. There was actually a thriving Chinatown here in Antioch, and folks were actually run out of town. So there was an exclusion that happened. There were people that were resisting that came back. And so I tell the story about those women that came back to the town after being literally run out of town. So it's a fascinating history that a lot of people don't know about. So if you're curious about that, then navigate on over to our Facebook page. If you don't have Facebook, that's okay. You can join straight on the Zoom call. So you can either watch on Facebook Live or on Zoom. And if you go to ebparks.org, our East Bay Regional Park District website, and look at our activities calendar, it'll be listed there. And the program is called Stories from the Depths of History, the Chinese Miner Experience. So that's a little bit more about that program. And if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to talk more about that.
Thank you, Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question is going to be for both of our panelists. We can start with David. So the question is, personally, what is the most rewarding aspect of your job, David?
It's hard to pick. I do think that, like both Ashley and I mentioned before, sometimes you're getting to help people who've never experienced something in nature in that way, getting to do that for the first time. So like taking kids camping for the first time, or helping kids, put their toe in the ocean for the first time, things like that. Those are always super rewarding. Another thing that I would say that I didn't really talk about during my presentation is that's very rewarding is when you create something. Like if I've written a presentation, or right now I'm writing a puppet show for kids or things like that. When you create something and then you get to see it out there with people, and you get to see your coworkers doing it too, presenting something that you created, that is super rewarding. Also, I noticed in the chat that I may have been having some technical issues earlier, so sorry about that. And if there was something that skipped or I missed, just let me know.
I think we were able to hear you for the most part, David. Yeah, it is difficult to pick what the most rewarding part of this job is. I think, like David said, creating something and seeing it kind of come to fruition. For example, this past month, all throughout the month of April, I created different little wildflower spotlight videos, just like 5 to 10 minute videos about a specific wildflower in Black Diamond Mines Regional Preserve. And folks loved it and would make it their weekend activity to come out and try and find the flower that I talked about. So seeing people connect to what you're doing, it's just so awesome. But again, like David said, bringing people to the parks, a lot of the time, pre-COVID, we're bringing students to the parks every day. That's the bread and butter of what we do, is school field trips. And these are sometimes kids that wouldn't have been brought to the parks had they not been on this field trip. So we're exposing people to the wonder of the open space in the Bay Area, of which there is a lot, but also working on new exhibits. So if you're ever down in the Livermore area, go check out Del Val Visitor Center because it just got a complete makeover. It's super cool. And I got to write a lot of the exhibits and kind of dream up what those exhibits would be. And if you read the text on the wall, a lot of it was written by me. And that's something that's gonna live on. So you get to have kind of a legacy with this career, which is really special. So I dream of, you know, being a grandmother one day and bringing my kids to the park and looking at the exhibits that I created. So that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, it sounds really cool to have something you create stick around so long. This one is from another anonymous attendee. They ask, what level of education do you need to become a naturalist?
I can speak to that one. So for being a naturalist at the East Bay Regional Park District, you do need to hold a degree. So you need to have a bachelor's degree. And it doesn't have to be in the natural sciences. I work with people that have art degrees and business degrees, and they had experience working at visitor centers or volunteering that got them here. So you can have a mixture of things. You can have just a degree in the natural sciences, or you can have a lot of experience, but you do need to have a degree to work here at the East Bay Regional Park District. At other places like national parks, you don't necessarily have to, and state parks as well. There's a lot of interpreter positions that don't require a 4-year degree.
Yeah, I would say that's been my experience as well. You know, like I said, I studied environmental studies, but not everyone that I've worked with has done that. And there is grad school programs for museum studies or for things like that. I didn't do that. I know some people that did, and some people that didn't. So it's not really a set thing necessarily.
Thank you. Yeah, we do have quite a lot of our audience at all of these climate careers chats are actually like high school or college students who are figuring out what to study in college. So it's really helpful that you guys give this information. It's really valuable. So thank you for that. Our next question is also more on the education side is how would you recommend that people with strong writing skills take action? So whichever panelist wants to take that question, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, both of us kind of hit on already that part of this job is writing. And, you know, you can write exhibit signage, you can write programs, presentations. So that, you know, that's how it's maybe connected to this field. There's also, you know, science writing. You can study science writing, like how do we communicate science? Like when you read something in National Geographic or when you read a story about a new scientific research paper, that's someone whose job it is to translate scientific lingo and jargon and turn it into something that an everyday person can understand. And that is definitely a cool path as well.
Yeah, those sound like good opportunities. Actually, I believe you already answered this kind of, but someone also asked, is there a trade program that doesn't require a degree to work in the field?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's touch on that again because kind of our trade program with the East Bay Regional Park District is becoming a student interpretive aid or interpretive student aid rather. So you have to be a student. And you can, you know, if you've already graduated, there's definitely people that hold this position that just sign up for one class or have an online class so that they can hold that student status and become an interpretive student aid with the parks. And then from there, the next step would be a position called naturalist aid. And the naturalist aid position assists the naturalists in those school field trips. They help run the visitor centers. They help oversee the ISAs, the interpretive student aids. And then there's naturalist. So there's those stepping stone, so that's kind of the career path for the park district. Pretty much every major governmental agency has a system similar to that. With national parks, you can be a student interpreter and then be interpreter 1, 2, and on. And state parks has similar steps as well. So there's a lot of different career paths. The tricky part with that is, though, that for every agency, it's called something entirely different. Like David and I are naturalists, but if you went to Yosemite, you'd be talking to a ranger. But rangers at the East Bay Regional Park District do trail work and maintenance around the park. So it's a really different job title. So it's just important to really thoroughly read those job descriptions when you're applying. But the interpretive student aid position, typically right now with COVID, it's limited, but typically it's just an open application process. You can apply at any time. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and fill out that job interest card. And we actually just closed, unfortunately, the timing of this presentation is tough, but we just closed for the naturalist aid position. So that stepping stone where you don't need your degree yet, but have some experience. And then the naturalist position also just closed as well. So we'll be hiring new naturalists. So this is something that comes about every so often, where those wheels are turning as ISAs become naturalist aids and those naturalist aids become naturalists.
And is that interpretive student aid, is that a part-time position?
It is a part-time position, yes. Yeah, so it's designed to be while you're in school. When I was an interpretive student aid, however, I worked Wednesday through Sunday. So it was very much a pretty frequent job that I was able to hold. Sometimes students will just work 1 day a week though. So we kind of work with you in your schedule, and every visitor center is a little bit different. So it's a good idea to give a center that's close to you or that you're interested in, be it down in Ardenwood with David, or here at Black Diamond, or Tilden, or Crab Cove, Sunol, Del Val. All those different places are operated just a little bit differently.
Thank you. Our next question is for either panelists. What podcasts and books do you recommend? And if possible, if you know the name and author or name of the podcast, if you can type it in the chat too for our audience to see and go directly to it, that'd be good too if you know it off the top of your head.
I'm not sure about podcasts. There definitely are books about interpretation, about, sort of the principles of interpretation. There's a book called No Child Left Outside that was a big deal when it came out, because it was really about how important getting kids outside is. So that's a big book in our field. It looks like Ashley's putting some other ones in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just typing a few. I just put in one of my favorite books to just give an introduction to kind of the secret world that lies all around us in the Bay Area. It's called Secrets of the Oak Woodland. And this is just a book that will blow your mind, learning about all of these different things that are around us all the time. And it'll make you want to talk to people about it. Like, you'll learn that those little lizards that we see around our homes and around the schools, the Western fence lizard or bluebelly, some people call them bluebellies, they have a third eye. So they have 3 eyes. There's like so many really crazy things. There's California newts where if you licked it, it would be the last thing you ever did because they're so toxic, and they live right here in the Bay Area. So Secrets of the Oak Woodland. And then David touched on some of those books that are really important in our field. So if you are seriously considering the field of interpretation, I'm typing in Interpreting Our Heritage. And that was written by a man named Freeman Tilden. And he's thought of as the father of interpretation, right? He was the first dude to really say, hey, everybody, come with me. I want to take you out on this hike and I want to teach you stuff, but I want you to like really feel something while you're learning it. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in the chat as well.
And of course, I totally butchered the name of the book that I thought I was talking about, which doesn't exist. The book I was thinking of is, I'm putting in the chat there, Lost Child in the Woods. And I don't know where I came up with the other title.
Yeah, and Freeman Tilden is kind of like the OG interpreter. The new guy that everybody's learning from is named Sam Ham. He has a ton of books. So again, if you're really into this, then you can look up Sam Ham, and he has a lot of books on interpretation. I think like interpretation, making a difference is one of them. So there's a lot of good books out there. As far as podcasts, like David, maybe we should start one, because I don't think there are good podcasts about interpretation. I don't think there's any. I mean,
not that I know of.
There's podcasts that people do like like they're interpreting, like Golden Gate National Park has a great one where their rangers are interpreting a new topic, but nothing is about like the actual field of interpretation. But yeah, that's a good point. You know, there really aren't that many out there. Good question. All right.
Okay. And we've got next question is for David. They ask, what kind of naturalist programs and job opportunities exist in other states?
Well, there are state parks. There's lots of other, there's lots of opportunities at those other state parks or other national parks around the country. When I mentioned the AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, that's nationwide. So if you are able, or if you're living somewhere else, or if you're like open to like, I can move anywhere to get any job, there's a ton of opportunities, all around the country. And, like Ashley was talking about the award that she got for the National Association of Interpretation. So that's a nationwide organization as well. So yeah, I mean, there definitely are, but it can also be kind of hard to, I think it's hard to find it's hard to land any job in a place where you're not there, just in general. But the opportunities are out there for sure. And yeah, I think most of the sort of, or a number of the sites that I listed for like job search sites were more like local or state California, but a few of those are national.
Yeah, I just typed NAI into the chat. When I was working for the city of Pleasanton and had applied to the parks but hadn't heard back, I was looking at NAI's job board and applied to jobs in New Orleans, in South Carolina, all over the country. Also just like government jobs. I guess it's just like governmentjobs.gov. But that's how, if you actually navigate to the East Bay Regional Park District website and go like you're gonna fill out an application, it's all done through the government jobs site. So you could just go to governmentjobs.gov, type in interpretation or interpreter or ranger or parks, and you will just see a plethora of positions that are open to you. So there are so many jobs all over. It's not just a California thing. When we go to these national conventions of park rangers, yes, we have conventions, and yes, they are amazing. All the park rangers get together, and I have friends that work in Florida, that work at the National Mall, that work in Yellowstone, from coming together for these different things. So there are jobs all over, and you don't have to just be in California to do this work. And in fact, David was talking a little bit about preaching to the choir. And it's interesting when I've talked to people that work in some of those southern states and they're talking about climate change and they're like, yeah, the sea is rising like in our backyard and people aren't believing it. And it's their job to help them understand what's going on in their own community. And I just think that that would be a really rewarding career as well.
Yeah, you can move away from the choir.
Yeah.
Move somewhere where the choir is a little bit different.
Ooh, David, we have a question about our favorite trail in the park district. Do you have one?
I don't know if I have one yet because I'm new, but I do really love Tilden. I love their botanical garden. It's not necessarily a trail, but I love the botanical garden there. There's little crawdads in the stream and little fish and all the beautiful plants. And I recently went to Round Valley Park, which is which is part of the East Bay Regional Parks, and I had a run-in with a cow. That was interesting to see who was going to let the other one go on the trail. Eventually, the cow let me go.
I'm typing in the chat. One of my new favorite trails is the Chaparral Trail, and it's here at Black Diamond Mines. And it's cool for so many reasons. I mean, as a geologist, there is sandstone all around you. And I know I mentioned Disneyland earlier, but it's like, if you've ever been to Disneyland, it's like walking around Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Like there's red rocks in the Bay Area. And I never knew that until I came to work out here. Growing up in San Leandro, my folks didn't take us all the way out to Antioch to go hiking when we had the redwoods right there. So you can hike around this really cool sandstone area. The plant species are spectacular because they live in this habitat that's super sandy, super dry, and everything is just amazingly resilient. And then there's all these awesome little caves you can explore because of our mining history. So there's areas that have been hollowed out where they stored the dynamite for building the mines, and you can go in there and explore all these different crevices, and that's pretty cool. But before that, I really love hiking to Little Yosemite in Sonoma. So I don't know if y'all have done that before, but right now is the time to go. The wildflowers are popping off. If you go to Little Yosemite, don't take that out and back flat trail that everybody does. Take Canyon View Trail. The flowers are amazing. Canyon View Trail down to Little Yosemite and walk back on that flat trail. It's awesome. So I'll type that in here too.
Where is Little Yosemite?
Sorry, yeah. Sonoma Regional Wilderness.
That's a good question to ask about trails, because I know that during this pandemic, hiking has been really one of the most popular things to do. So thanks for giving us something to do on the weekends. Really, really appreciate it. There's a trail right next to me, and I know that now just because of COVID, a lot of people are using it now, which is so great. Like people are using the trail that I live next to. It's so nice. Our next question is, for both panelists, what majors are useful if you want to build a career off of writing environmental policy?
Well, I mean, like when I did study environmental studies, I did take classes about environmental policy, and then I would imagine that most people who probably work in that end up getting more, a higher level of education beyond what I did. But environmental studies, there probably are environmental policy, majors or master's programs or things like that. So that's definitely something that exists.
Yeah, I majored in geology, so I was just making maps and looking at rocks. I didn't really take any environmental policy courses, but I know that there's a lot of people that work for the district. The district is huge, right? So there's a lot of people that work just buying up the land for the district. We have our own police department, our own fire department. we're a huge agency, and so there's definitely a lot of people that work in our government affairs department that do environmental policy work. So if you're curious about that, we can connect you with some of them. I'm going to put my email address here in the chat just for anybody if you have any questions at all. I love talking with people about working for the parks. So I'm Ashley Adams at aadams@ebparks.org. So if you're curious about environmental policy, we can get you in touch with somebody that might know a little bit more than we do.
And it looks like our last question we got is for David, and they want to hear about your run-in with the buffalo. Sounds like you got some bad luck running in with cows on trails, huh?
Yeah, it's just they're just drawn to me, you know. Yeah, I guess I couldn't really tease that story without someone wanting to hear the whole story. So basically, I was very lucky and privileged to be able to go to Tanzania with my family to go on safari. And most of the time when you're on safari, you are sort of out in the open plains, and there's you can see really far ahead, and you kind of see where things are, see animals from far away. But there was one day basically where we were in a more of a forested area with trees and thicker vegetation, and we got out of the car, which you also don't get out of the car that often when you're on safari, but we got out of the car and we were walking to this place where you were supposed to be able to look down at a valley or something and see all these herds of buffalo and wildebeest and things like that. And so it was like the guide and my dad and me and my mom and my sister were kind of a little bit behind us. And we turn this corner and there's this big buffalo just lying there. And the moment it sees us, it stands up and it starts to run towards us. And, I mean, they're big, they have big horns. And, you don't want to mess with one of those things. And our guide is just like, run. And so we turn around and we start running. And it was so absurd that we're laughing and screaming and saying, run. And my mom, my sister didn't even know what we were running from. We're just like, run. So we're running, and thankfully there was sort of a fallen tree or a log kind of in the trail or on one side of the trail or something. So we were able to just kind of easily able to kind of hop over it or hop around it or something like that. And the buffalo, I think it saw that as more of a barrier, and I think maybe it decided that we weren't worth it. We weren't worth the trouble. And also, if a lot of the time animals do a bluff charge, they're not really going to just come after you. They're gonna kind of bluff at you, and then we did what it wanted us to do, which was to get out of its space. So we were all good, and yeah, it's quite the story, and it's good for two truths and a lie.
Yeah, it was a very good two truths and a lie question. I agree. I cannot imagine what would be going through my mind if I were in that situation. Yeah, but that concludes our Q&A session. Thank you, audience, for sharing your questions with our panelists. And now, I'm going to talk a little bit about Sustainable Leaders in Action. So this event has been brought to you by Sustainable Leaders in Action in collaboration with Contra Costa County Library. So we've talked a little bit about Sustainable Leaders in Action, but I'll go a little bit more in depth with it. So we are the youth branch of Sustainable Contra Costa, which is a bigger environmental organization within Contra Costa County. We focus on promoting sustainable practices within our county, and our volunteer work focuses on creating a cleaner, healthier, and safer community for our county's residents. So it is open to both high school and college students based in Contra Costa County. You will have a time commitment of around 2 to 5 hours a week. You can give or take as many hours as you can give to us. A lot of us are students with a lot of stuff going on, but we're still able to make it work. We also have internship opportunities for our committed members. You can do stuff in film, photography, graphic design. Basically, if you have a hobby or a passion that you want to work out in an environmental setting, you can go ahead and do it here. And we also have like what Alexi mentioned earlier, we have an action of the month where we, as well as anyone that we advertise it to, we all do some sort of action every month that promotes sustainability in the county. We also have a newsletter that we talk about what we do within our group, as well as we share articles on environment, personal accounts of why we joined this organization, and even some recipes that are environmentally friendly. You gain professional development experience, and you will have a very fruitful experience if you join this organization. You can really, like I said it before, but I'm really gonna say it again. There is so much that you can do with this group. You can, I even made this poster that we're looking at right now. I did that, and I'm also up here hosting a whole panel as an 18-year-old. It's amazing. You're gonna do a lot here, and yeah, go ahead.
I just want to emphasize that SLIA is completely youth-led, so everything you saw tonight was created by students, and we are pretty independent, but we do work also closely with Sustainable Contra Costa. And I just dropped my email in the chat, so if you're interested in SLIA, go ahead and contact me, shoot me an email, and I'll get you set up. We're always looking for ways to expand and new projects to create, so if you got an idea too, just let me know.
Oh yeah, we're definitely all open arms, all welcoming here. And our chair is asking if you could take Sydney out, Ashley.
I think that would be
yeah, I think all of us want to see Sydney.
Yeah, we can wrap up the program, and it looks like she wants to see all of you. So just
okay, this is great.
Open up the cage here.
I'm so excited.
So in many of our parks, we have animal ambassadors who live with us in the visitor centers. They're not with us, we don't live here, but they live here in the visitor centers, and we use them on programs. So Sydney here is a gopher snake. And this is something that I do almost every week for our field trip called Animals and Their Habitats. We talk about animals, we talk about what habitats are here in the Bay Area, and we introduce one of our snakes. And they all get turns coming out. We're really gracious with our animal ambassadors. I won't take them out if they're giving me any signs that they don't want to be out or being used today. So I'll normally come over and give them a little tap and see how they respond. But Sydney was kind of looking at us the whole time here in the video. So she's one of the few snakes that we have. We have another gopher snake named Tyler, a king snake named Norton, and a rattlesnake up at the very top. And you might have seen her. She was kind of climbing throughout the program today. And we don't take her out, but she's here in the visitor center. So right now, our Sydney Flat Visitor Center, which is where Sydney gets her name from, is not open because we're using it for our virtual classroom or a little studio. But you can come visit us at Black Diamond Mines and go underground in the mine every Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 2. So you won't be able to see these snakes, but you can come see us, and you'll likely see some snakes out on the trail if you're hiking up Black Diamond.
What kinds of snakes on the trail?
Often gopher snakes like her. Sometimes there will be rattlesnakes as well. So it's a good idea to keep an eye out, especially in the spring and summer if you're hiking around the East Bay. every rattlesnake that I've come across has always been super docile. They see you and they slither the other way. They don't want to waste your venom, their venom, rather, on you, because that's how they eat. They need that venom to catch their next meal, right? So they'll usually rattle and be like, hey, get away from me, please go away. And you step back and no problem. I have never, ever worked in a park where someone has actually been bitten by a rattlesnake. It really doesn't happen that often.
What kind of stuff does Sydney eat?
Mice. Yeah.
Where do you guys get Sydney from? Or
Yeah, so a lot of our animals here were rescued from the park. So either they were a few, and I'm forgetting what Sydney's exact story right now is. Tyler was hit by a car and rehabilitated, and then now only lives in the visitor center because they've been fed by people for so long. So a lot of our animals are rescue animals with the park district, but some are really old holdovers from the time when naturalists would just go collect animals and bring them into the visitor center. So that's not something that we do anymore. We use a lot of rescue animals currently. And you can see that Sydney has some eye issues, so she can't eat very well. So we sometimes have to help her eat. If you see that cloudy eye, that's something that snakes get when they're about to shed, but Sydney has that all the time. So she kind of has like cataracts going on. So she wouldn't be able to survive so well in the wild. And I'm forgetting sorry, go ahead.
Kyle's asking if you have to go through some training before you're allowed to handle the snakes.
Yeah, so for all of our interpretive student aides, if they feel comfortable, and I'll tell you that when I was an ISA, I was not comfortable until a year or two into the job, but we go over how you can't wear any sunscreen because that could irritate the snakes. We talk about that these are land snakes. They don't like to climb trees, so there's no like putting them around your neck. You have to really kind of give them a good surface to be on. So yeah, we definitely go over training before we let you handle the beautiful animals that work with us.
You know, we were talking before about like helping, you know, expose people to the first time of experiencing something. Well, one of the coolest things is when someone sees a snake and they're like, no way, I'm not going to go near it, I'm not going to touch it. And then you get to be that person that educates them and helps them understand that snakes are really beautiful and important. And, you know, I've gotten to help people touch their first snake ever countless times. I love working with animals like that. I miss them from the academy. You know, I would get to hold snakes all the time, but now I'm in the goats and bunnies kind of world. But yeah, working with animals, I mean, that's a big plus too of this field.
When I was like 6, I think we went to a field trip to some sort of zoo, and there was a chance to hold the snake, and I held the snake, which I really surprised myself, and now I love snakes.
Aww. There you go.
And I love Sydney. I love Sydney.
Yeah, she's beautiful, and she's about almost as long as I am tall. Gopher snakes are super long snakes. They're pretty cool.
And they're okay being kept in an enclosure that's shorter than they are?
Well, you know, a lot of the time with snakes, they feel safer because they would be down in a burrow. So they don't need all that room to run around when they're not actually actively hunting for the mice that we give them. So in order for them to feel a little bit safer, yeah. But our enclosures are fairly industry standard for zoos and aquariums.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and hi Sydney. Hi Sydney. I will go ahead and just conclude this kind of quiz chat really quickly. Thank you for bringing out Sydney. I think we all can say thank you for bringing out Sydney. It's really a nice surprise.
A big part of the job.
Thanks for a little bonus. Well, with that, thank you everyone who stuck around this long. You all are free to go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Hope you guys learned something new about green careers, and thank you again to our wonderful panelists we had tonight. Definitely learned a lot of new stuff myself.
Yeah, if you would like to know more about Sustainable Leaders in Action And our Instagrams and our website are right there in front of you. If you want to join Sustainable Leaders in Action or are interested in joining, you can contact Alexi right here at alexi@sustainablecoco.org. Once again, this climate quiz chat has been brought to you with help from Contra Costa County Library. Thank you so much again for this opportunity. We really appreciate it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to stick around for a little bit. Otherwise, have a great evening and thank you so much for coming to our climate quiz chat. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Ashley, you said you studied geology at Humboldt, right?
Yeah.
Actually, that's where I'm going next year.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, Max, you're gonna love it. Oh
Yeah,
man,
stoked.
it's such a beautiful place to study, like whatever you're gonna study. But environmental, just everything is so big there. And what really drew me to that school is, did you know about the pledge when you graduate? You take a pledge saying that you're never going to take a job that could harm the environment in any way.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's cool.
It's a
Yeah,
good pledge.
I'm gonna study environmental science, resource conservation.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, hey, you have my email, so reach out if you have any questions at all about, the area. Or I just love it. I go up there every chance I get. I have a lot of friends that still live in the area, so yeah, it's a pretty cool spot.
Definitely. Yeah, I'll reach out to you.
Right on.
Well, thank you both. With that, I'm going to conclude this webinar.
All right.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, David.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everyone.
it.
Thanks
You're
so much.
welcome.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you
Good
guys.
evening.
Have a good
Bye.
night.
Thanks.
Bye bye.